It is another Faith Nation Wednesday. Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us. I'm Jenna Browder.
And I'm Amber Strong, in from David Brody. It is a busy day today here on Faith Nation. We're talking White House departures, a special election, the border wall, but we begin with a nationwide school walkout that's taking place today.
Now, students from thousands of schools are walking out of class to protest gun violence. The National Walkout Day comes exactly 1 month after the school shooting in Parkland, Florida, where 17 students died. Here in D.C., students are gathering in front of the White House calling for more gun control. And around the country, students say they want to see the government do something more with gun violence facing not only schools, but the country as a whole.
Yeah, we've seen quite a bit of the coverage of the walkouts. Of course, we were here at the walkout in D.C., but we also had our teams down in Virginia Beach at a walkout that was taking place at a Christian school, Chesapeake Christian.
Yeah.
And we saw just kind of their perspective on the walkout. And so instead of a traditional walkout, they walked past 17 chairs dedicated to those 17 students. And as they walked past, they prayed for each one. I just thought that was a really powerful moment.
Very touching. You know, and it shows you the importance of visuals as well. I mean, we see students from across the country going to the nation's capital, going to state capitals, really strengthen numbers. It's really honorable, I think, what these students are doing. I will say, Amber, at the same time, it does seem like some on the left have kind of taken this and they see it as a political opportunity. I mean, you see, you know, the group that's really organizing this is the group that's behind the Women's March and things like that. So it is disappointing to see it become somewhat of a partisan issue, but bottom line, what the students are doing is so great, and it's encouraging to see them get involved in the whole democratic process.
And I think kids take that and then they take their own narrative. So we've seen those kids in D.C. who are pushing for 2A laws, but then we've seen conservative movements pushing in favor of the Second Amendment. We've seen teachers who said use those 17 minutes to get to know a student that you didn't know, a student that you maybe walked past. So while there may be a political narrative behind it, I think there are so many facets to this, and it's so far reaching we can't just narrow it down to like one group.
Well, and it's such a huge problem in our country. You know, like we said, not just schools, but really everywhere in our country. You know, this is such a huge issue that I don't think it's going away.
Oh, no.
Obviously, anytime soon. What do you all think? Please comment below. We'd love to hear from you throughout the show about this topic and about all of the others we're going to be talking about as well, including this one. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson joins a growing list of top-level departures at the White House.
Yeah, apparently that came as a surprise to some across the country, not many in the Beltway, but it came as a surprise to Tillerson himself. So who has come and who has gone, and what does the president have to say about all of these exits? Take a look. Like deja vu.
Rex is a very good man. I like Rex a lot.
Another week.
My commission as Secretary of State will terminate at midnight, March the 31st.
Another resignation. So does the Trump administration have a higher turnover rate than its predecessors? Whether through resignations or those famous words,
"You're fired."
Several high-level officials have departed the White House since 2017. Some of the more notable names include Press Secretary Sean Spicer, Deputy Assistant Sebastian Gorka, White House Communications Director Hope Hicks, Senior Economic Advisor Gary Cohn, Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, Chief Strategist Steve Bannon, and Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price. The Brookings Institution says the number of top staffers leaving this White House is nearly 3 times the departures of the Obama White House in its first year, and double that of Reagan, the previous record holder, out of the last 5 presidents.
It's not abnormal that you would have people come and go.
That number suggests the turnover rate is substantial. But here's what the president had to say about it all. The new fake news narrative is that there is chaos in the White House. Wrong. People will always come and go. There is no chaos, only great energy.
Proud of the opportunity I've had to serve my country.
For more on how the lawmakers are responding to yesterday's news, we turn to our Capitol Hill correspondent, Abigail Robertson. Abigail, what have you been hearing about Rex Tillerson's departure?
Well, Amber, a lot of senators and congressmen seem to have been very surprised yesterday by the news of Tillerson. I spoke with Senator James Lankford yesterday, who told me he found out while he was at a Bible study here on the Hill, and all of them got the news notification. And his office thought that Tillerson in the White House had smoothed things over and that Tillerson would be sticking around for a while. So he was surprised to hear the news. He spoke very highly of Tillerson and the work he's done, and that he just said that he's done a great job straightening things out and improving diplomatic relations. So it's surprising to him, but ultimately the president has the right to remove anyone in his cabinet that he no longer has good faith in, and that the president and Tillerson clearly did not see eye to eye on some key issues. And so he says that this should not, these shakeups we're seeing at the White House should not be a surprise, just judging by how this administration operates. And you know, they're not really politicians. And so you know, here's a look at what he had to say about the chaos going on right now.
This White House, when they came in, there's no great shock to anyone. They came in with no political background or experience. They came in because of that role, and quite frankly, the American people picked them because they didn't have that. But that also means when you're a rookie into something and just getting started, you also make some hires and some structure and things, and then you go back and change it. I thought Rex Tillerson was a fantastic leader. He didn't line up perfectly with the president in all of his foreign policy areas, and so the president thought he would at the beginning. A year down the road thinks no, he doesn't. So he makes the shift. That's the pleasure of the president, to be able to do that.
And it sounds like it wouldn't be a surprise if maybe a few others, so that there's a few other shakeups to come.
Yeah, and Abigail, does the president's pick to replace Tillerson, Mike Pompeo, does he have a chance of making it through the confirmation process?
Well, Jenna, that is the question of the month. So Pompeo, when he was confirmed as CIA director, he had strong bipartisan support by a vote of 66-32 in the Senate, with the only Republican opposing him being Senator Rand Paul, who just about an hour ago held a press conference here on the Hill and announced that he will not support Pompeo, nor will he support his successor to be CIA director. But you know, other Republicans disagree, and they think Pompeo is still a great pick. He was a great pick for CIA director, and he will do a great job at the State Department. And you know, it'll be interesting to see if the Democrats who supported him a year and a half ago, whereas, you know, it was a little different back then, if they still will vote for him. So here, I talked to Senator Lankford about this as well, and you know, he's encouraged and thinks Pompeo would do a great job as filling in for Tillerson.
Mike Pompeo is a really great leader and just a solid human being. I think it's a good fit for him. And I do think he's going to do a really good job.
Now, these are very big positions that our country really needs to be filled. So Leader McConnell said yesterday he will not delay in beginning these hearings and hopefully bringing these up for confirmation votes very soon.
All right, Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson live from the Hill for us. Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
Now, Trump's new pick, Mike Pompeo, is definitely a person who has the president's ear, so to speak. For more on Pompeo, we're joined by our national security correspondent, Eric Rosales. Eric, break down a little bit for us and for everyone watching why the president decided to go with Pompeo.
Well, you know, this is a man who really has a connection with President Trump and vice versa as well. President Trump has said that he actually enjoys speaking with Pompeo. Pompeo, as CIA director, was personally delivered the presidential daily brief every morning. Now, that's the highly classified information intelligence report specifically designed for the commander-in-chief. And he's also proven his loyalty to the president. And as we know, loyalty is very big to this president. With that being said, assuming Pompeo is confirmed as Secretary of State, he will certainly serve better than Tillerson, and that is a personal opinion only because there's always been that standoff kind of attitude between the State Department and the White House, and now we need some sort of direction to be able to work together out there.
Yeah, the daylight between the Secretary of State and the President. You can't have that.
Exactly, you cannot have that.
Yeah, Eric, you know, why is the timing of this so important right now?
Well, of course, as we know, what's taking place in North Korea and the talks that are taking place in North Korea is the main reason. But this administration also has to capitalize on this timing. In March, we have the negotiations of the joint commissions dealing with the Iran nuclear deal. Then in May, we also have the deadline for the sanctions waiver. We also have the Iraqi elections. We also have the the United Nations being moved in Israel. You know, besides the North Korea talks, so this is something that the administration really has to jump on on top of, and if confirmed, Pompeo is going to be a very, very busy man. Now, some analysts do warn that Pompeo's ultra-hawkish foreign policy views will be very tough against North Korea, and that could possibly even cause people to not actually confirm him. But it's highly unlikely. This is a man who actually wants to be able to do the job and wants to be able to do it well.
Yeah. With Pompeo sort of moving, that opens that position at the top of the CIA for Gina Haspel, which is historic within and of itself. Tell us what you know about her.
Well, she is very much loved by her CIA officers out there. This is a woman who actually worked her way through the ranks. She has served a number of undercover overseas posts, including the chief of the CIA station in London and also the one in New York. Then in 2013, she was named deputy director of the National Clandestine Service, and during her confirmation hearing, she will likely have to face some questions from Democrats on the waterboarding issues that took place during the controversial counterterrorism interrogation techniques, and also putting people in boxes, things like that, at the black op prisons. So these are definitely questions that she's going to have to address when she goes before the confirmation hearing.
All right, Eric Rosales, thank you so much. It's great to have you. All right, we will be right back after a quick break.
Yeah, I got the
In uncertain times, nothing matters like the truth. That's the strength of CBN News. We pursue stories that make a difference.
Political situation in this country has been tumultuous.
From the world's most powerful city.
The White House asked for emergency Zika funding
to its biblical center.
2 mortars just hit. One was about 300 yards away.
No other Christian organization puts the resources and experience into covering the news you care about.
That's the power of CBN News.
It is down to the wire in Pennsylvania's 18th congressional district, where it's still too close to call. Yesterday's special election, Democrat Connor Lamb did declare victory, though, late last night. As of right now, he is leading by just over 600 votes. But Republican Rick Saccone has not conceded. Amber, some say this is a taste of what we're going to see this fall in the midterms.
Yeah, this is the district in which the district where this special election took place was carried by Donald Trump, or President Trump, in 2016. He won bigly, or huge, by 20 points. And so to see this razor-thin margin has some on one side very optimistic and some on another side a little bit cautious.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I will say the candidate does matter. Donald Trump, as you mentioned, he won this district by more than 20 points in 2016. But that was Donald Trump. This is Rick Saccone. Many would say that he was a weak Republican candidate, whereas the Democratic Party, they put forward a moderate candidate with some moderate views. He supports the president's tariffs and different things in the tax plan. And they're saying that's really why he won. He won over the Reagan Democrats. So that's one factor. And I'm wondering, Amber, do you think this will potentially move the Democratic Party further to the middle and farther away from the left?
Well, there's definitely a push for that. You see a big cry for that by some moderate Democrats who say it only makes sense that the candidate match the district. Why are you putting candidates in these blue-collar districts that are very, very progressive? They don't fit there. They don't identify with the people. So why are you doing this? And then you can point to Saccone. You can point to a Doug Jones and say, look, here are clear examples of where we match the people with the district. We got to win. But then others are saying, no, that's pulling us against the progressive side of the party, and that's where we're headed. So it'll be very interesting to see if they do return to the big tent party that they once were.
Yeah, we'll see how many of the Connor Lambs the Democratic Party can and will potentially put forward. I know Republicans, they're hoping that they don't have too many more of those in their pockets, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, President Trump, did you hear about this, Amber? He is moving ahead with the border wall. Yesterday, he got up close and personal at a look at some of the prototypes in San Diego.
Yeah, Ben Kennedy is live at the White House to break down the details. Ben, what do you got?
Well, good afternoon, Amber. Turns out President Trump got a very close look at 8 different styles of walls, prototypes aimed to keep out illegal immigration as well as drugs. Let's take it to California to show you that video where the commander-in-chief has asked Congress for $18 billion to build the wall. On his visit, the president called on lawmakers to pass an upcoming bill to fund the border wall and even approve a measure to prohibit grants from sanctuary cities for not complying with federal immigration law. But the funding has become engulfed in a bit of a controversy over a host of immigration restrictions he and Republicans have proposed.
For those people, if you don't have a wall system, we're not going to have a country.
And the president did not stop there. He then blasted California's Governor Jerry Brown, saying that he is doing a very poor job running the state. So a critical tone towards the state's leader. Amber?
Yes, not mincing words. Ben, this is a several stop trip for the president. He'll be in the Midwest today, right?
Yeah, Jenny, you're right. In fact, he is traveling, I believe, at this hour to the Show Me State. It is there. He'll be talking about tax cuts. He'll also be campaigning for U.S. Senate candidate Josh Hawley. After that, he will be heading to a Boeing facility, a plant actually in St. Louis, to meet with business leaders. So a very busy day for President Trump before he heads right back to here behind me, the White House, sometime late tonight.
All right, Ben Kennedy live for us at the White House. Thank you, Ben.
Eric is back with us for more on the president's trip to California. That's your old stomping grounds, right?
That is my old stomping grounds, Fresno, California, along with the Bay Area up there.
Shout out. You're from California.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone.
The president has said from the very beginning he's going to build the wall. Build the wall. We remember the chants. So now we're seeing the prototypes of that.
Right. Yeah. We actually did see the prototypes yesterday, and although the final testing of the prototypes is complete, the Border Patrol has not yet made those public just yet on exactly which one fared better than the other. But the president does want to see a wall, he did mention yesterday, that has some openings down at the bottom, and actually Border Patrol agents actually agreed with him because they want to be able to see if anybody's coming towards them and for some sort of protection. Now, a recent report actually from the Border Patrol shows that a wall will be needed. Estimated 170,000 people actually crossed the border last year, and that number is significantly lower than previous years, where 1.7 million people entered illegally. And, you know, some on the left side actually say, a number of organizations, that the numbers are down. Why in the world are we building a wall? Well, I recently returned from the U.S.-Mexico border, and I tell you what, we not only saw people crossing, but we also saw hard drugs. We saw cocaine, we saw methamphetamine making their way, drug houses, stash houses right next to the border where they're hiding a lot of this illegal substance, and in order to be able to make their way into the United States. And we also saw gang members, known gang members, and even some known terrorists who are on the watch list, who are trying to make their way through the southern wall itself. You know, as we know, through the southern wall, it's a majority of the people are from Guatemala, El Salvador, and those are the ones who are actually making their way. It's not the Mexican Americans, and that's the biggest myth. Is a lot of these people are related to the drug cartels, making their way through it, and they're bringing their drugs along with it.
Yeah, you know, Eric, it always comes down to the money and who is going to pay for this wall. How much is it going to cost, and how will it be paid for?
Right. As Ben mentioned, the president is looking to, he included it in a $23 billion request for border security. $18 billion of that would be designated for the border wall, the building of that border wall. And yes, contrary to what the president wanted well on the campaign trail, we, the taxpayers here in the United States, not Mexico, are going to pay for the wall.
You recently hosted a roundtable to look at a biblical perspective, because we've seen a kind of a divide among Christians about the wall and the future of immigration in this country. What did you learn from that roundtable?
Yeah, I invited actually a couple of people. I invited Sam Rohr, president of the American Pastors Network, and also Jenny Yang from World Relief. Jenny kind of brought the humanitarian aspect to this issue, but Sam kind of brought the biblical point of view, and Sam brought up some very interesting points on border and national security, on how God actually established nations, and Sam actually said that what the president is doing is actually biblical. So take a listen.
When the president came forth and said we must protect our borders, he was doing, whether he knew it or not, he was doing something which is very, very clearly biblical. Now, in addition to that, it's also very constitutional. And legally, borders are defined. Borders of our own property, of our houses, our counties, our states, our nation. Legal borders. If the borders have no definition and are not protected, then the law means nothing. So the president is absolutely perfectly correct.
And it's also interesting, I asked him about the biblical references to strangers. You know, so many times we hear from the left that as immigrants and strangers, we need to actually take care of these people and treat them the way that we want to be treated. And he says that when the left actually uses this reference, it's not used in the proper context when you're looking at civil government, how they must act towards immigrants, and the way that the church must act towards immigrants. But Sam says that it is not what the Bible says, and take a listen to what he had to say about this issue.
We are to be compassionate, but we have to think of this, and this is also lost in the debate. There are different jurisdictions of authority, different primary purposes for the different institutions of authority that God has created: the individual, the civil government, the church, and the family. They're not the same.
That's right. He said we have to keep these separated. You know, civil government actually must be there to enforce the laws, while the church can be there to actually help the people, the immigrants who actually come here. You know, it was a very candid discussion. It was you can actually see it for yourself over at cbnnews.com, and all you need to do is just log on to the National Security tab, and you can see it under titled Immigration: What Does the Bible Say?
All right, thank you.
It's an interesting discussion.
It was a great discussion.
Go on and on, back and forth.
Hopefully I'm going to, you know, every once in a while I'm going to, whatever the hot button issue is, I'm going to be able to get panels together and we can talk about this and we can be able to discuss this, and then we'll put them on our website and people can chime in on it as well.
I love it. Thank you, Eric.
Sure.
All right, Amber, what are people saying online
a lot of comments today, most of them in response to the walkouts. We've had the most overwhelming response to the walkouts. This one from Pam Rising, I'm going to read this one. Thank God these kids have the courage of their convictions. Maybe it's because they have recently learned what citizens did in history recently to create change. But then Sylvia Sanchez says, the president and everyone else knows there's a gun problem and he's working on it. No need to protest, go back to school and learn something. So we've seen a lot of those responses, like, this is not the way you protest, go back to school. But then we've seen some that pointed to protests of the 1960s and the Vietnam War and said, you've lived this life, we've seen this before, and we've seen protests before, so let's not act like this is something new. So it's very interesting.
People on both sides, the hot button issue. We tend to talk about those on this show, don't we?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Every week. Every week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention it. Sylvia also had another comment. She said, "Missing David, but you guys are doing a great job. Thumbs up emoji."
Yes.
Thank
and
you,
David
Sylvia.
will be back with us, right?
David will be back with us. I think we might have a picture of what he's been up to. If you were with us last week, we did a "Where in the World is David Brody?" What? And there he is on MSNBC, making the rounds.
He's been making the rounds. And if you're really missing David, you can find him on Twitter. That's where I talk to him a lot.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, he'll sneak into the comments here. So there's plenty of David to go around, but he'll be back here next week.
Well, Amber, it's great to have you. Thanks for filling in today.
I love being here. I just switched chairs, so, you know, it's all good.
Musical chairs. All right, everybody, that does it for us. But Amber and I, we're going to stick around and chat for a bit with you on here. So be sure to interact with us. Have a great day.